In this all-in podcast, the hosts discussed the company Mahalo, which at its peak was making $10 million in revenue with 100 people writing human-curated search result pages. However, their success was cut short after a Google update called Panda, which throttled the number of unique users they could send to Mahalo. The hosts debate whether the failure of Mahalo was due to poor product execution or Google's malfeasance. Jason challenges Chamath on his lack of product creation in his career, to which Chamath retorts that he is still the richest one among them. The hosts then move on to discussing Trump's indictment in New York on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, including a catch-and-kill scheme to suppress damaging information before the 2016 election. However, the details of the legal theories are unknown, making it difficult to understand the situation fully. They also make a quip about Kamatha's low-cut shirt made from a baby albino rhinoceros. The hosts then discuss potential solutions to the economic challenges facing the United States. One proposed solution is the implementation of austerity measures, which would require sacrifices from both the wealthy through higher taxes and everyone else through reduced spending and services. Another solution is increasing productivity through technology and innovation in order to create new industries that can stimulate economic growth. Additionally, recruiting more talented entrepreneurs through intelligent immigration could also help to start new companies and fill job vacancies. The hosts also discussed the history of tax rates in the U.S., with the top marginal tax rate having been as high as 70% in the past. However, they argue that simply raising tax rates is not enough to solve economic problems, as the amount of federal receipts remains roughly around 19% plus or minus 2% regardless of the tax rate. Thus, a lower tax rate that is broader-based and coupled with economic growth is seen as a more effective solution. The hosts also agree that austerity measures are critically important, and entrepreneurship through recruiting talented entrepreneurs is seen as a key driver of economic growth. Finally, one host takes the opposite view, suggesting that there may not be significant changes to the economic landscape. Chamath expresses his belief that the U.S. national debt will continue to rise, but it will not be a major issue in our lifetimes, at least not on a relative basis. He argues that the U.S. will continue to be exceptional compared to other countries due to its strong economy and human capital. Chamath also highlights the importance of entrepreneurship, immigration, and austerity in maintaining the country's economic strength, with moderate candidates like Joe Manchin potentially being able to talk about cutting. The discussion then turns to the topic of investing in countries like Saudi Arabia and China, with Saudi Arabia's public investment VC arm listing their funds and China becoming a major player in the AI race. There is a debate about whether LPS in America should invest in Chinese AI startups, given the potential military implications. The hosts recognize that this is a complex issue and discuss the pros and cons of engagement and building bridges with other countries. These countries have huge balance sheets and manage peace and prosperity regionally. The Public Investment Fund (PIF) in Saudi Arabia is seen as making a smart marketing move by presenting itself as a blue-chip LP of established organizations. U.S. limited partner market is essentially closed for business. Endowments, universities, and family offices are licking their wounds. Therefore, it is a perfect time for folks in Saudi Arabia and the UAE to basically put the foot on the gas and basically tell everybody that they are open for business. The discussion also touched upon the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States (CFI-US), that evaluates investments done in certain businesses or technologies by foreign actors. They have specific rules concerning the investment of foreign actors in businesses or technology to limit the ability of foreign actors to invest in those businesses. However, some of the U.S. firms investing in China's AI should not be allowed, as it poses a security risk. There is a call to have a point of view on this issue, and U.S. fingerprints should not be on the perfecting of this technology outside of U.S. borders. The talks also discussed the historical engagement with China and took a multi-decade globalization perspective, which created prosperity and intertwined dependency, with iPhones being the best example. However, this has also enabled China to become a competitor, and the constructive engagement policy of 20 years ago did not work as expected. John Mearsheimer, a realist scholar, had warned that if China becomes rich, they would push the United States out of Asia and seek dominance, which is the situation we see today. Therefore, the focus should shift from economic terms to strategic terms. They suggest that there are two views of the US-China relationship, geopolitical and economic. Both views are important, but given the current geopolitical tensions between the US and China, geopolitical concerns may be more salient. Specifically, they argue that accepting investment from countries deemed adversary by the US government, such as Russia or North Korea, may put a venture capital firm in a difficult position with the US government. On the other hand, if a country is a US ally, then it is fair game for investment. However, they note that there is a lot of ambiguity around where to draw the line with China, given the deep interdependence between the two countries. Friedberg suggests that as an investor, he is more concerned about the potential for government action to wipe out investments in countries like China, rather than the political implications of investing there. The group seems to agree that when it comes to investing in foreign countries, geopolitical concerns should be taken seriously and considered alongside economic factors. While the group agrees that selling certain products, such as cars or movies, in China is not problematic, they hesitate to take investment money from China since it could create complications down the road. The conversation then takes a tragic turn as it is revealed that Bob Lee, better known as Crazy Bob, on Twitter and the creator of Cash App, was stabbed to death in San Francisco. The group expresses condolences to Lee's family, and notes that San Francisco has become a dangerous place, with petty crimes such as car break-ins being common. The discussion shifts to how San Francisco has become an upside-down town, where power dynamics have been flipped, resulting in more negativity. They note that while it is important to give opportunities to those who are disadvantaged, flipping the power structure upside down can have unintended consequences in various areas, such as college admissions or job selection, and may lead to a massive detriment. They believe that the flipping of power structures in San Francisco, caused by a push for decarceration, has resulted in the unlivable condition of the city due to the release of predatory criminals and psychotic elements on its streets. They criticize elected officials and nonprofits for their lack of responsibility, and call for regime change to address the issue. The hosts point out that other cities have successfully handled similar problems by drawing a hard line in the sand and increasing policing. However, they express their skepticism that people can see through the naked partisanship to agree that the current system is not working. One of the main points addressed in the conversation was that crime in San Francisco has become a politically polarized issue. Aggressive policing and safety now contradicts social justice, which is why the city cannot agree on what is essential. It was stated that the divide between social justice and law and order candidates during the recent Chicago election proves that people cannot find common ground. The speakers believe that the situation is unfortunate, leading to many people left behind with limited options. In addition, poverty, corruption, and homelessness are prevalent in San Francisco, making it challenging to solve the issue. The speakers agreed that until the justice system is fixed, it is best to pursue other options, such as leaving or hosting events in other areas. They mention that the system is complex and made up of multiple levels such as the D.A, mayor, and board of supervisors, which can be overwhelming for the average citizen. However, they also note that there are groups like Grow SF, and individuals like Gary who are actively working towards changing the system and making it easier for citizens to understand and participate in. Jason suggests following these groups and voting for their recommendations as they are well informed and equipped to create change. This concept is important because it highlights the need for civic engagement and awareness in order to create meaningful change in the political system. It also suggests that the system is intentionally designed to make it difficult for average citizens to understand and participate in, which can be seen as a barrier to democracy. The idea of following informed groups and individuals also emphasizes the importance of community and collective action in creating change rather than relying solely on individual efforts. The hosts also discussed the recent legal action being taken against former President Trump by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Chamath Palihapitiya expresses his hope that there is credible evidence against Trump, as the charges brought against him seem relatively minor, and some on the left are critical of the case. However, David Sachs defends the Manhattan DA's decision to charge Trump, arguing that the underlying behavior of paying hush money to Stormy Daniels is not illegal, and even if it were, Trump used personal funds rather than campaign funds. He notes that campaign finance laws are federal laws, not state laws, and that the statute of limitations may have passed on this matter. Sachs suggests that this case may be a political maneuver by Bragg to rally Republican support for Trump, playing what Coulter calls three-dimensional chess. Jason Calacanis suggests that the Manhattan DA may shift the focus of the case to tax evasion, given that Trump's organization has already been convicted on this charge, and that these are misdemeanor crimes that would need to be converted to felonies in order to be significant. The hosts express frustration at the waste of resources and disruption to the city that Trump's legal battles are causing. They discuss the decision of New York City District Attorney Alvin Bragg to pursue charges against former President Donald Trump. They discuss the potential consequences of pursuing this case, including poisoning the well for future cases, wasting taxpayer resources, and potentially interfering in the political process by affecting the Republican nomination. The group also discusses other cases involving Trump and whether they are politically motivated. One member of the group expresses concern about the criminalization of political disagreements. They then discuss the Hunter Biden case and the potential ramifications of investigating and criminalizing political disagreements. While one host believes that what Hunter Biden did was shady and an indication of a larger problem in the political system, he argues against criminalizing political disagreements. The hosts then shift focus to recent developments in de-dollarization, specifically the China and Brazil trade deal that no longer uses the US dollar as an intermediary. One host notes the deep trade ties between China and Brazil, highlighting how China's investments in infrastructure development and economic gain are intertwined with the countries they do business with. Additionally, they discuss the implications of the US potentially deglobalizing and reducing trade relationships with other nations, which could give countries like China more leverage in the global economy. Another host notes that the yuan is still pegged to the US dollar, meaning that even if countries bypass the US dollar and trade directly in yuan, they're still tied to the US dollar through currency swaps. Chamath argues that China's dominance as a trading partner comes from its ability to manipulate its currency due to its peg to the US dollar. He believes that until China's currency is free-floating, the real market clearing price will not be known. Sachs agrees with Chamath and adds that the risk of dollarization is growing due to the US's massive debt and weaponization of the dollar. He also points out that the US's sanctions against countries and seizure of foreign currency reserves make the dollar viewed as an unreliable store of value by those countries. As a result, the risk of dollarization may make the US dollar less attractive, making the US more susceptible to a broader discussion on the dollar standard. They note that China has built a competitor to the financial infrastructure of SWIFT called CIPS and is signing up countries for it. However, they argue against painting this as significant as it may be just a random data point. The hosts are of the view that we are headed for some sort of government debt crisis and identify three prongs of this financial crisis: long-dated bonds, commercial real estate crisis, and government debt crisis. Refinancing the $32 trillion debt at much higher interest rates within next 3 years and the prospect of more than $1 trillion of interest expense owed by the US government every year by 2030 are major concerns. The hosts also note that every major economy or trading bloc in the world is going through their respective challenges. They conclude that as long as the dollar remains the canonical flight to safety, it will continue to be favored against commodity alternatives like gold. They are of the view that we are in trouble and it's only a matter of timing and path, but the arithmetic is pretty simple. The hosts also discuss the unfunded pension liabilities in many blue cities and states. They point out that these pensions are defined benefits, where employees get a fixed amount of money for life, often based on their last year's salary, regardless of the amount of money that went into the pension plan. This creates a significant unfunded liability that has to be paid eventually. They also mention that the US government might have to print more money to cover these liabilities and that this could lead to inflation and a decrease in relative wealth. Additionally, the guests discuss the uncertainty of the US dollar's strength and whether people will get their value back for the bonds they buy in US dollar-denominated form. They suggest that there is a higher degree of uncertainty around the US dollar's future, which could make people consider other options. Although the panelists state that these are different issues, they relate to each other as the money to pay for unfunded pension liabilities will have to come from somewhere, and printing more money is one possible solution. The increasing liabilities that the US government holds and the mounting debt raise questions about whether people will continue to hold dollars. Sachs suggests a potential solution, similar to the superannuation system in the UK and Australia, where people are forced to contribute to their 401k, which has resulted in successful savings. However, Sachs and Chamath disagree on the extent of the possible decline in the US dollar, with Chamath arguing that the decline is not catastrophic and Sachs concerned about the actual feasibility of the US being able to pay off its debts. The topic of the US deficit leads to a discussion on whether the US will default on its debt in June when the debt ceiling comes up for renewal. The guests debate whether this will be a fractious event, or whether there will be some concessions on spending to avoid defaulting. The potential decline of the US dollar is a nuanced issue, according to Sachs, who argues that the real problem is not China but the US government's accumulating liabilities. Freeberg explains that the risk is not that the dollar will be replaced overnight by the yuan, but rather that people may start to hedge their dollar exposure, making trading decisions that were previously automatic more variable. He compares the potential decline of the dollar to what happened with the British pound sterling, which was originally pegged to the US dollar, and became unpegged, resulting in a slow devaluation over time. The conversation then shifts to the interconnectivity between the economy, civil unrest, and unfunded pensions, with a focus on commercial real estate and pension funds. The participants note that pension funds, which are 3/4 unfunded, are heavily invested in commercial real estate, and as the value of office towers in major cities continues to decline due to civil unrest, these funds may not be as valuable as they once believed. The government will likely need to step in to ensure that pensioners still receive payment, but this could lead to a decrease in the value of the dollar, and ultimately, the economy. When asked about potential solutions to the debt cycle, the participants highlight increased productivity, encouraging more investment in technology, and focusing on increasing economic growth. However, they acknowledge that these solutions may not be enough to completely solve the problem. Check out the full podcast by clicking the link in the description below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for listening to this podcast summary episode of the Pod Slice.